What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the after credit scene. We're talking about episode 2 of Miss Marvel. We're going to break down all the different things that went on in this episode, some pretty big revelations and some good teases for what's coming up. But before we get to that, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so when we drop new content, you'll be the first one to know about it, and then share this sucker all across the multiverse. The episode did not disappoint. I like the pacing that they're going with. Really a big fan of the teenage drama, really a big fan of the coming of age story, the love interest, the back and forth with Bruno, just the humor involved there. And then the teenage culture, the Pakistani culture. I love the way that they're blending these kind of things. And especially, like I said, last episode, when we were talking about the differences between Pakistani culture and American culture, was blending these ideas and introducing this world to a whole different group of people. And so I really enjoyed getting to see the mosque, getting to see the conversations they had, especially from a woman's perspective. As a minister myself, the conversations that they were having are not just limited to women in mosques and Muslim culture and things like that. They're all over the place when it comes to religious conversations, and I am glad that they addressed them in a very open way, but they didn't bash one side or the other. They just presented an issue, and both sides were, I won't say heard, but at least expressed in this episode. So that was really cool in that regard. Really just 3 big things in this episode that I want to talk about as far as breaking down what we saw and what happened. The Department of Damage Control is kind of moving in. We knew those kind of things were going to happen. The montage between Kamala and Bruno learning how to use her powers was really interesting. And I liked that she didn't just know how to use her powers, and obviously with an origin story, that's something that you're definitely going to get. We'll come back to that. But then, again, centering a lot of the conversation and the investigation into what the bracelet was around this festival of Eid Mubarak was really, really cool. And we'll dive into some of that in an Easter egg video or a prediction video later on. The 3 big things I want to talk about that were revealed to us in this episode. One, when Bruno and Kamala are testing out her powers, trying to figure out what she's capable of doing, he has a little FLIR camera, which, if anybody is interested, is not actually that difficult to get anymore. It used to be technology that was reserved for military. It was these big apparatuses that were basically heat cameras. But now you can actually get them in a little attachment for your phone. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that Bruno would have something like that. But you see on his iPad, he actually tells her that her power is not coming directly from the bracelet, that it's coming from within her. Now, little side note, that little line about the power coming from within her is going to be a really cool metaphor that they're playing with as far as the coming of age tale. This girl becoming a young woman, this teenage coming of age thing that they're really they're really riding hard on. That is a really cool metaphor that they're playing with, and I really like that they're using this idea of superhero powers and origin story to talk about those things. In some ways, I like the way that they're doing this, similar to, or maybe even better than, the way that they utilized Peter Parker in Homecoming and then Far From Home. His story gets really serious really fast, which is on par for the tone of Spider-Man and things like that. That's why you get lines like, "With great power comes great responsibility," that it's overwhelming. But there are other things that are really interesting to play with and talk about surrounding a character like Miss Marvel, and especially Kamala Khan, when it comes to the culture that she grows up in, the fact that she's a girl navigating all this. I like that they're utilizing those things and really taking their time to integrate those ideas into her story. But when Bruno says that, the direct thing that I pulled from that, and we talked about it in a prediction video too, is that I think her powers, that bracelet is somehow Wakandan, that or it did give me 10 Rings vibes as well, but that there's something about it that is going to unlock powers in her. Similar to her comic book character, who is an Inhuman, and her power is unlocked through Terrigen crystals. Maybe this is the MCU's way of showing that there are other ways for Inhumans to unlock their powers rather than just Terrigen crystals, or maybe there's Terrigen within that. We're actually going to get that story here. Not really sure, but I know that there's more to that. And then the director and Kevin Feige have teased that the crystal light, what they call hard light in this episode, is not Kamala's final form. And so that remains to be seen how they're going to handle that and what that's going to look like. That's the first big thing that I noticed right off the bat that was a tease as to what's coming in the future. I think maybe that's not a payoff until the end of the series, that the bracelet gets taken away from her, but that she finds out that the power has been inside of her the whole time, and you see a tease of her power manifesting without having the bracelet. That maybe Damage Control thinks that they've isolated her, and one of the last shots in the series is her actually using her power without the bracelet. Who knows? That's where my mind goes with it, but I could be wrong. But either way, they laid the groundwork there for those things. The other thing is the main thrust of the episode, and they looked at it from a lot of different angles, was the idea of the great-grandmother's story, and where the bracelet came from. They started talking about it at dinner when Kamala's brother and his fiance came to dinner, and they start talking about the partition when between Pakistan and India and the British occupation, all those kind of things. That's a really cool, I don't say history lesson, it's not a great part of history, but I say cool in the fact that Marvel included that and gave a little bit of a story there to give people the opportunity to go, what is that? Let me learn about that. So I'll let you take that deep dive on your own. It really lends some depth to these characters, and it sets an interesting backdrop for a situation where some of these things might have happened. And so there is a lot of investigation that goes on there, and Kamala's trying to figure out how her grandmother got this bracelet, how her great-grandmother disappeared and came back, and she finds out that there's something that the family thinks is shameful about her great-grandmother. I wonder if it's still some kind of Wakandan connection, if her family thinks that something bad happened, but it really wasn't something bad. It was just something that they misunderstood, and they don't really know about her, that her great-grandmother kept secret. That's going to be a really cool story and a really cool piece to connect, especially when Kamala is trying to figure out how she's going to integrate her new powers and her new abilities and her newfound confidence that you see her walking into school with some swagger at the beginning of the episode, with who she is as a person and where she comes from as a Muslim girl and as a Pakistani girl. And so that story, I wasn't really expecting some of that. And the flashbacks or the different things that she gets, the flashbacks are maybe her great-grandmother or whatever she was seeing there, separate from what I thought was her being taken to some kind of ancestral plane that looked like the Wakandan ancestral plane in the first episode when she first puts the bracelet on. This is a little different, and I'm going to have to dig into that to see what that looked like. But curious as to your thoughts there. I think that's going to be, clearly it's going to be a big storyline moving forward. It's going to give you a lot of insight into the character and what they're going to do with who she becomes. I think that piece is the who she becomes, not just the what she is. And so I think the what she is part is more part of the teenage coming of age drama, where she's going to have to figure out on her own, who am I? And what do I want to do with this, as opposed to where do I come from and who do I want to be when it comes to the story of her great-grandmother, and getting that and this idea of not just knowing the good parts, but knowing the bad parts about your family history, and choosing how you want to move forward with all of that information. I think it's something that we all wrestle with, and some parts that we can definitely connect with. So I like the character depth. Marvel has always been pretty decent at that, but some of these TV series, I love that the writing is more focused on the people and how they interact with these fantastical situations, rather than just, hey, we're going to throw another superhero story at you. That's what makes the characters endearing. That's what makes us root for them, especially when they take moments to let Iman Vellani do something as crazy as dance through the house when she comes back from her date with Kamran. I thought was really, really cool. And this is a really great moment to point out how awesome the soundtrack is too. They're really utilizing those things, and it was a lot of fun too. Also really dug the really quick intro. There wasn't some really long intro to the show. It was just like the Miss Marvel flash in the different type of styles, and then they moved on. That was really cute, and it fit Kamala's personality and the show and the whole deal. So the last thing I want to talk about that we need to kind of wrap our brains around here, when Damage Control finally does catch up with Kamala after she rescues the boy during the Eid festival, the drones were the biggest surprise to me, and it started ringing bells in my mind. It was oh, they have drones. Oh, so. And it was a little concerning to me. It makes me not trust them even more. I've always kind of tried to keep my opinion reserved when it comes to Damage Control, as far as whether or not they're good or bad, because it was something that was kind of created in cooperation with Stark and those kind of things. It never really felt like a bad thing to me. However, they've never been a totally good organization. They've never been portrayed that way, at least. And maybe that's a storytelling quirk, that they're trying to make you think that they're on your trail, that it's not a good thing. But every time they show up, even if they have good intentions, there's a lot of unintended consequences, and bad things usually happen. And so, arresting Peter Parker and putting Happy Hogan on trial because he has some of this tech, and then with in Homecoming, when you see Damage Control come in and take over Adrian Toome's business, all of these things seem to have good purposes, but the unintended consequences that it causes a lot of harm for people. When the drones showed up, I thought, oh, they have this capability now, and then I thought, those look like repurposed Edith drones, and one is that fallout from the fact that nobody knows who Peter Parker is anymore, that somehow they were able to get a hold of these things. Or the other thing I thought is, are these somehow connected with another organization that Damage Control is working with? And it's giving me some AIM vibes. Advanced Idea Mechanics, we last saw them with Adrian Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3, and they're kind of the antithesis to Stark Industries. They do some of the same stuff, but Killian and that organization always, their cutting edge had some moral ambiguity to it. It wasn't always the right thing for the right reasons, like Tony completely flipped his company. And you kind of saw that with Hammer in Iron Man 2. It's the same kind of thing, but in the future, especially with Kang and some others, and we saw a little bit of a tease of that in Loki, when they find this axe from like the year 3000, it actually says it's created by Advanced Idea Mechanics. And I wonder if Damage Control is partnering with this organization and using some of their tech, all the while AIM is furthering their own agenda from within Damage Control. But the drones made me way more suspect than just the guys in the black trucks showing up. And so what happens there, and whether or not Damage Control is a force for good or not, remains to be seen. I wonder if the people that Kamala came in contact with at the end, Kamran's mother or whoever was in the car whenever Kamran picks her up right there at the end to get away from the damage control guys. They end the episode making you think that this is a good person, that this is a good thing, that she's being rescued. It would not surprise me if this was a little bit of a switcheroo, that the damage control guys are actually going to be helpful, and it's kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D., that everybody thinks that they're not good, but they're actually trying to help, and then these other people are not what you think they are. And Kamala having to realize that on their own and trying to figure out how to navigate that world. All of that's going to be really interesting, and I definitely had a jaw drop moment at the end trying to figure out who is this woman, and does that mean that Kamran is not actually a good guy, that he was kind of coming after her, that he didn't really like her, that he was just trying to get close to her for whatever purpose is going to be revealed in episode 3 and 4. So not really sure, but it definitely made for an interesting video. It definitely made for an interesting just story overall, and I like that they did progress the story, but they took time to develop the characters and develop the world, and I like the pace and the style that they're using here. And so I'm curious what you guys think. They threw a lot of stuff at us in this episode, but they did it in a way that honestly, again, just like episode 1, had a lot of reviewing possibilities where you could go back and rewatch it and get some really cool points out of it. So tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the channel as always, and check out some of our other content over here. We got a whole lot of things that you can sink your teeth into. And as always, guys, when the next one drops, we'll catch you right back here. Later.